Tonight's shave, I'm going to use this Declaration Grooming Badger knot. This is the B5 batch. I think current batch is 7 right now. I think 6 was kind of short-lived. I'm going to put him in a little bit of water. I like to do that. You could just get him wet and then let him sit. Whatever you like to do. Try it both ways. See what you like. They don't absorb water in the bristles like the boar hair brushes do. So it's you can treat them a little differently. Today is going to be another shave with the Marathon Nacet blade. 50 on this side, 70 on this side, plus 3. So this is going to be shave 1, 2, 4. And here is the Nacet blade. I had to get, I had to dry my little envelope there in a different location because I got it wet. So I had to do something a little bit different. Here's the business side. I am always keeping this side toward the facing down, the bottom of the razor. Actually, this whole time, 123 uses, I am shaving with the X side. If you barely see the X up in this corner, I'm shaving with this on the bottom, and then you can see how clean the top part is, and relatively speaking. And because at the end, when I'm finally done with this blade, I'm going to flip it over and see if the shave is any different. All right, that's the blade. I've showed you the brush. I've shown you the brush. Ballenclaugh Crypt Earth and Sage is the soap of the evening. I'm going to hold it right there so you can pause if you want to know the ingredients. Try to read them there. It does have tallow, cocoa butter. See highlight some of the ones for you. Lanolin, silk, castor oil. So this is from a guy in Nebraska. It's a state that's dear to my heart. I had a Ballenclaugh Woodsman, which I thought would be really cool, but in actual use, it's very heavy on pine tar, but in actual use, it really just smelled like pine cleaner that you might use in your house. And so I couldn't get past it. And so I found somebody who was willing to trade. Awesome. And I do smell the earth, the dirt scent in there, and I also smell a little bit of sage. I was a little hesitant. I'm not a sage fan. But this, at least when it's in dry form, it is not a dominant scent. I can smell it, but it's not. It seems to be working nicely with the earth and dirt scent. Hopefully it'll stay that way when it's wet. I have not lathered this up yet. I have splashed a little bit of water on my face to kind of get ready for things, get my face soft-ish. Have the lather bowl, Roger Quintero 3D printed one. And you can have a link to the plans there in the description of the video if you're interested in doing yours. This is the XL size. I believe there are 3 sizes in that file that he has. That's what this is. I got my brush soaking. Got my, and this is the Gillette Sheraton, if I hadn't mentioned that already. It's a vintage Gillette razor, open comb obviously, and it just has the right geometry for this old blade to agree with my face. All right, we can go ahead and go. So I believe I got a good lather from the Ballenclaugh that I tried before, and so I don't expect any problems today either. I'm going to take out my Badger brush here, do a good bit of shaking. And it is a dry surface, kind of a yellowish soap. And we'll do a 30-second load. Oh, and 30 seconds is right there on the clock. So we'll go to the 0 mark. I've been evaluating and training up boar brushes over the last few weeks. And so this is a Badger. This is a departure, a little break from all the boars. There's 6 of them that I'm working with, and so it's a never-ending source of variety, and so I don't even feel the need to turn to the Badgers, at least right now. It's very foamy, and there's 30 seconds. It's quite foamy and airy and bubbly. All right. And I'm going to use, here's my cool, this Rogers Design. Look at that. Just terrific. Works well. Pause ya. All right. Dry bowl. This brush did not start out with a whole lot of water in it, because I shook most of it out. Don't worry if you ever have a soap that is similar to this one that just gives you a really bubbly, airy lather first. I've never seen one that didn't become just fine if you just pushed through it, kept mixing. My advice would be not to add water until you work that lather down and get those bubbles out of there. You saw how bubbly this was, and now look at it after just a little bit of stirring. So just stir through it. Williams is really bad about that. Mystic Water soaps, so slick, such a good, their scents are a little bit on the mild side, but the performance is just excellent. You just have to do what I'm doing here and work it a little bit before you start adding water. This is terrific. Okay, I'm happy with that. The scent, the sage isn't too strong. Unfortunately, I don't have my syringe, and so I can't tell you how much water I'm adding. So we'll just have to watch the lather, and then maybe we'll know by the different attributes of the lather if you wanted to perhaps duplicate this. We'll see if the 30-second loading is enough. Add a little bit more water. Yesterday I tried Lisa's soaps for the first time, and wow, that was a terrific soap. It is one that required about 40 seconds of loading instead of my usual 30, so I did have to go back to the puck during the shave, but man, once I did, that lather on that third pass yesterday was terrific. That is a soap that really, it's like an undiscovered gold mine. It was just so good that I just was mystified as to why I hadn't really heard it mentioned more than I have. I mean, I've just barely heard it. Finally found a post on some forum in the middle of nowhere that talked about how good it was. And so I found somebody that had a used tub for sale. So I tried it out, and it's so good. Yeah, this is coming together nicely. Take a look and I'll show you the lather here. Definitely not done with adding water, but I just wanted to show you the progress a little bit. Lather feels good as I push my brush through it. Oh yeah, that's looking good. A little hard to show you. Camera's on that side. Usually camera's on the other side of my mirror, and so it's easier to do that. You can see the brush is splayed out and it's getting a nice knot full of suds and lather. This may be the last bit that I need to add. So yes, this guy's going to be a lot softer on my face than the boars I've had lately. But the 3 Samog boars that are in my rotation are very comfortable brushes. The Sterling and the Omega that I have are the ones that are a little bit more scrubby, with the Omega not quite being comfortable yet. Still more like a broom. It is going to be something once it breaks in. And then the Zenith B10 that I have is along the lines of the Samog brushes. Quick break in, very soft, very comfortable. Really enjoying those. All right, now take a look at that lather. A little brush hair bristle coming loose there. Okay. This could need a little bit more water, but do you see how it's moving? Those are traits to look for, so you know when to stop adding water. Starting to be more like a marshmallow cream. Just grab a little bit of it between my fingers, and I do feel the ridges in my finger prints. So I think that we're good to go. I'm not going to add any more water just in case we're right at that line. I like it as wet as we can get it to get it as slick as possible. And I like it right on that edge where it still has some creaminess and it doesn't drop off into non-creaminess but still slick. I like to still have that creaminess. There is something minty in the mint family, or having a mint effect. I'm pretty sure it's not mint. It may be the sage. I don't know for sure. Probably just the sage, but let's just use it. The earth is still there. So let's just see what it gives me when I have it on my face. Throw a little bit of water now. And there we go. Now time for that beautiful Badger Comfort. Now this thing is so dense that sometimes it doesn't really splay very much. There we go, starting to now. It's very light right now, and that's okay. See how transparent everything is right now? That's kind of typical. Middle of the brush doesn't have a lot of soap, but it's got a lot on the outside. And so when I start changing up my brush stroke, you can see how things get more opaque and all that stuff. So we'll do a little bit of scrubbing. Recently found out that with a badger especially, and most boars, you're not going to be doing very much exfoliating with the brush. It's just not rough enough. And that's okay. You don't want to, because that first pass with your razor is going to do all the exfoliation you need. Dermatologist gave somebody online that advice and they passed it on to us. So don't worry about any kind of extra exfoliation if you shave with a safety razor, because that first pass is doing all that you need to worry about. You don't want to do any more, because then that would expose your skin to more roughness and exfoliation than it needs. You don't want to overdo it. Alright, that was super soft, like the Easter bunnies behind. Smell is pretty good. I'm really glad that the sage herbal type notes are not super strong right now. I'm still detecting the earth and the dirt with it, and so that's good. All right, shave number 124. Find I get a little closer shave with this blade when I do this kind of buffing action. And then I'll kind of compare it on the other side of the face by taking longer strokes, just to kind of see which one I like. I think this is a little on the thin side, and so what I'll do is a little fine tuning by not leaving any extra droplets on my face when I rinse. See how that does. Slickness feels pretty good, despite the fact that it's thin. A good soap is like that. I don't like it when it's so thin that it's just dripping off your razor, dripping onto your shirt. Kind of where I draw the line. There are some soaps that are still very useful, very beneficial and slick at that point, even when you got stuff flying off your brush, dripping on your shirt. And so there's nothing wrong with the soap. It'll still be a high performance lather for you. But I just don't like the inconvenience of that mess. So I like it a little bit thicker than that. All right, rinse. Some fine tuning that I mentioned, you can put a bunch of water on your face and leave some drips in case your lather's a little bit too thick. That can help it thin it down. You can just kind of get rid of the excess drops, leave a little bit of moisture, and kind of continue that way. You can also just dab your face with a towel to then have not contribute any more moisture to the lather, and that's what I've done. Another thing for you goatee wearers out there, if you've got a lather that is kind of thin, on the thin side, do not leave that water alone that sometimes after a rinse will end up in your goatee. Just dab it on a towel, because I've definitely had plenty of times where I've been working it in and all of a sudden that water gets into the lather and rinses it right out, because the lather is right on the edge anyway. So clear that out if you need to. So I've got a fairly dry face, and I wanted to see how this would feel with that. It felt a little on the thin side on the first pass. Because I can always add a few drops to the brush if I need to. This feels great, feels creamy. Of course, this is the brush doing its thing. Scent is pretty reasonable strength. I like the strength of this. It is available. It's present as I'm shaving. To be honest, it's probably a little too sagey for me. But that's all right. Yeah, that's a good lather. Feels good. All right. Pass number 2. Spend a little extra time being careful right here, because that's where I have issues with not being able to cut the hairs. I don't know if they're laying too close to the skin. I can't go right against the grain. Right there, it irritates my neck. Very comfortable shave right now. See now, notice this time the lather's not dripping off my razor like it was that first pass. It's because I didn't have that water on my face. I'm definitely glad that I stopped adding water when I did wipe away the stuff that's in the non-shavable area. And as always, you've probably heard, if you've seen videos and stuff, we're focusing on beard reduction. Taking those whiskers down little by little instead of all at one time. All right, I'm going to pause you for a rinse. So that turned out to be a very good move with removing the water from my face. That lather was terrific. Had great glide, had slickness to it, but I had a wonderful creamy rinse afterwards. So very good. Let's do the same thing again for the third pass. And it looks like that 30-second load is going to give me plenty of lather to do the job. So that's good. So here's what the brush looks like now. Plenty of lather. Enough to do another pass or two. So I've tried 2 of Ballenclaugh's soaps now, and so I'm really happy with the performance of his base. Very happy. That's good. Maybe investigate. Maybe somebody will be interested in swapping this one for something else. All right. No irritation or anything like that so far. Third pass. The way I do my jawline, I'm a fatty, so I have a kind of a curved jawline. I don't really have a chiseled, cornery jawline, but if you're having trouble with your jawline, see what I just did was, my hair grows sideways here. So what I did was I come up like that, and then I stay along the bottom part of my jawline there. And sometimes I'll kind of do the same thing over here. I'll stay along the bottom part, so I'm not really addressing or having to deal with the curves. The corner of the jawline yet. And so then I'll do my shaving. And then whenever I do my cheeks, I stay with the flat part of my cheeks as well. And you can see how that pretty much in many cases will connect. And so I don't really find myself having the width of my blade go over a hump. That's the corner of my jawline, and because you know that sometimes it's going to bite you because it is a peak, you know, the top of the ridge of a mountain, if you will. So again, I'm just doing the flat part of my cheek, and as you can see, there's not a white stripe there. I've kind of done the flat part on both this part and the bottom, and they've ended up meeting in the middle. So that's how I handle my jawline. Some people have problems with that, and I can see why. Well, an area that in a similar way got me was this, I guess this is a tendon or something, along the muscle coming from behind the ear down in kind of the front of the shoulder blade. And how I addressed that was turning my head a little bit, and I came at it at the kind of this angle like this. And I never really rode it straight up and down. Again, you don't want to go across a ridge like that. Yeah, comfortable shave. Nice slickness still on my face. Lather's not going anywhere. Nice and stable. It's not dissipating or anything like that. 124 uses. I did not see this coming when I started this back in August. All right, final rinse. Okay, that's a pretty superior shave. I just took a look at it, my little trouble spot here. Most of the time, once I got above maybe 70 or 80 uses with this blade, I found myself having to do that fourth pass with my neck only, to address these guys. But I feel like what has happened is and that was with this same razor. I feel like what's happened is that I have learned some of the different angles to approach this area with carefully, so as I don't stir up razor burn, but I have a slide against the grain aspect to it, and that gets me where I want to go. So I don't have to do that fourth pass, and I think that's pretty crazy compared, since we're talking about a high usage blade. I don't feel any irritation, feels good. This is a soap that this lather has been pretty normal, average to rinse off. It's not one of those super slick ones that just sticks to you and it takes forever. You know, it's not one of those watery ones that rinses off quickly. It's just right in the middle. I find that a good spot. Just a little, my usual redness right here. I don't actually feel that, so I don't feel any redness or any irritation. I definitely don't have any weepers, and so this was a good shave. So let's throw on the herbs. Yeah, I'm not a fan of whatever herbs are dominant here. It's probably just the sage, and that's just not my thing. But I thought it was worth a try. I didn't really have any hits with other people who had other Ballenclaugh scents to trade. So I went ahead and tried it, and I do like that. I do like a lot of the earthy scents that have the soil to them. Dirtyver is by Decl Grooming, and that's I like that one too. This is the Nivea Original Post-Shave Balm, available everywhere. Walmart, you know, 3 of them on Amazon for $15, something like that, and it works well for me. If you have super dry skin, I don't think it's heavy duty enough for you. It's what I've heard, but I have oily skin, and so I don't really need a super strong hydrator. This has a little bit of alcohol in it too, and so I appreciate that to break up my oily skin and kind of reset it. So how much lather did I have left over? Almost what I kind of like. Probably about 2 passes right there if I wanted without a problem. And I might like a little bit less, but big deal. So 25-second load might be perfect, maybe 20. I'm really happy with this lather. Yeah, it's a nice lather. Good base he has. All done, all packed up. Excellent shave, nice close one. The closeness is actually the concern, at least in my experience, with this, an aging blade. Irritation is not going to be something that all of a sudden it's going to start developing, which kind of makes sense because it is getting smoother and smoother. Now granted, even with the Sheraton, if I were to wait 2 or 3 days and try to shave, it would be tuggy and pulley and rough, and so I enjoy the daily part of it when I have this blade. But the closeness of the cut is really what you have to watch out for when you take a blade this far. And in that regard, if it never starts to turn, starts to tug and become uncomfortable, then, you know, when are you gonna? You could then just choose whenever you wanted to stop, because you could just choose to have a little not as close of a shave that particular day. But I don't know when I'm going to stop. Probably when the closeness just is just not good enough at all. You know, when I wouldn't be considered a respectable shave to a person maybe 5 feet away, something like that. If it didn't bear up under scrutiny with somebody right up on me, I feel like that's a little too rigid. But if it doesn't look like I have a good shave from just a few more feet away, I think that means it's the stopping point, and that's when it's time to draw it to a close. But for now, I'm impressed. It's really good. Sure, 124 uses. I'm not saying the Nacet is the special blade that can take you this far, because there have been other guys who, a friend of mine online, an Astra Super Platinum, he took past 100 shaves. Matter of fact, he hit 130 just a few days ago, and he and I have kind of been going back and forth. Okay, and he's not using a Nacet, he's using something else. Somebody else used, got to 100, I think, with another blade. But the most popular blades that are out there, Feather, Gillette Silver Blue, I mentioned the Astra, all these are capable of going to 100 shaves if your technique is good, and different things like that. All right. I hope there was some information for you in this shave. It was my first time with this scent from Ballenclaugh, my second use of a soap from that maker. and it confirms to me that he knows how to make soap. He's got a good recipe, and I do not have a problem at all with his base. I think it's tremendous. Taking the Badger was a nice break. Well, next time we'll hit the Boars back up again. I think they've all been used about 6 times or so, so we're getting into the 7th use of each one. And I think we're good. There we go. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves. You take care. Good night.